Welcome to MiWeek. I'm Christy McDonald. It's time for the truth. All of the campaign ads that are clogging up TV commercial time, some of them for and against a proposal, are running back to back with wildly different claims. What can you believe? Well, we've called in the Truth Squad to the rescue. It's our first story on MiWeek, so let's get started with our contributors and the editorial page editors of the Detroit News and Detroit Free Press, Nolan Finley and Stephen Henderson. And also joining us is John Bebow. He is the president of the Center for Michigan, which heads up the Truth Squad. Gentlemen, good to see you. John, thanks for joining us.
Good evening.
It has been an amazing political season so far. The Truth Squad has been working overtime, I would think.
We have. It's been a very busy season. Wild claims indeed on all sides in these ads. The ballot this year with the proposals makes this really tough on voters. And if you're going to make your vote based on what you're seeing on TV ads in between the second and third innings of the Tigers games, you're doing yourself a disservice.
All right, so
John, have you found any truth this season?
There have been a few instances, about as many truthful ads as the Tigers have found base hits recently.
Oh, all right, that sounds tough. So, okay, let's go ahead and set it up for people. We have several ads to look at. So let's start with ads concerning Proposal 2, which would put collective bargaining rights in the state constitution. So here is the ad for Prop 2. Go ahead, Tim.
Yes on Proposal 2 doesn't add any rights workers don't already have.
It doesn't force people to join unions.
It doesn't put a single worker into a union who isn't already in one.
It doesn't require anyone to pay dues.
Yes on 2 simply prevents those who want to eliminate working people's rights from being able to do it.
Collective bargaining for wages, benefits, and pensions is an American right.
Protect it. Vote yes on Proposal 2.
All right, so let's go ahead, John. Where's the truth meter on this one?
We call the foul on this. It's a strange ad because the whole nature of the Proposal 2 campaign is to reinstitute more labor power in the state. That dynamic has changed a lot in the last couple of years in Lansing. And to say that it's not going to add any rights, we think is fundamentally incorrect. We think it's specifically designed to increase worker rights in Lansing and to add labor power. So it's an odd claim to even make in an ad.
Yeah, I mean, the right that this would add is instead of just having a right to collectively bargain, which everybody already has through federal and state law, this would be an unlimited right to collectively bargain and would prevent the legislature from sort of setting the scope or putting any limits on collective bargaining.
This is a proposal really to undo the last election and to roll back all of the reforms that have been put in place over the last 2 years, and not a single ad says that. Not a single ad says, okay, our goal here is to roll back the teacher tenure reform, to roll back the shared pension cost and health care costs. It's all about collective bargaining, which, as Steve says, you have that right.
All right, so let's go ahead and look at an ad that's against Proposal 2. Take a look.
It's rare, but when it happens, lives are ruined, a child's future denied. So we took action. But Proposal 2 could prohibit schools from removing employees with criminal records, the unintended consequence of a special interest power grab. Proposal 2 could limit the use of background checks for school employees and make it harder to get convicts thrown out of schools. The special interests win, kids lose. Vote no on Proposal 2. We can't take the risk.
Now, that's a powerful message, and I would argue almost a scary one for people. So what did the Truth Squad find, John?
Did not find a foul here. You remember
Really?
Bill Clinton's old what the definition of is? Well, in this case, we're talking about the difference between could and would. We called a foul on an earlier iteration of this whole campaign, which made it sound like sexual predators are going to be teaching all over Michigan. We thought that was hyperbolic, way over the top. These ads are hyperbolic, and they are tough, but because of the nature of this proposal, it's going to be in court. If this passes, this thing will be litigated up and down. There will be all kinds of laws that are called into question. Lots of things could happen. This one pushes the bounds, but we did not call foul on it.
You guys agree with that?
No, I agree with it, and I think for the reason we don't know what could happen if this passes, because the language says that any law, past or present, that affects the conditions of employment for public employees has to go to the bargaining table. So we don't know where that ends up. That's almost every law that involves any sort of government reform or any sort of restrictions on behavior of employees or workplace rules. It's all got to be done at the bargaining table, and who knows where that'll lead.
Yeah, I mean, the proponents of this proposal have tried to frame it as an economic issue, right? That their rights to bargain over their wages and things are what they're trying to protect. The problem is that the language of the amendment would strike any limits on collective bargaining. So you could be at the table talking about if someone has a positive hit on a criminal background check, what should be the consequence? That would be something you would have to negotiate with the unions.
All right, well, let's move on and take a look at Proposal 3, which would put in the state constitution that at least 25% of our energy would have to come from renewable sources by 2025. And here's the ad for it.
Big oil and energy companies say we can't afford Proposal 3? Not true. Studies show renewable energy will reduce the cost of your utility bills. The Michigan Public Service Commission found renewable energy is now cheaper than new coal. 30 other states have passed measures like Proposal 3. In Illinois, clean energy is reducing electricity prices. And Proposal 3 protects consumers by prohibiting utility companies from raising rates more than 1%. Big oil company lies. We can't afford them.
When I see these ads, I'm always struck by the imagery. You've got the slow-moving wind turbines, which look so nice, and then just the spewing of the smoke from, from like a coal company. So, John, what did the Truth Squad find on this one?
We called foul on this, and we've called foul on both sides of this campaign over the pocketbook claims that are made in these ads. This one specifically takes out of context some of the ballot language, and it states on the screen that consumers will not see rate increases of more than 1%. Here's where that's out of context. That is strictly for the costs of the renewable energy standard, okay? Any other projection you look at will say that rates are likely to increase. Overall, utility rates are likely to increase in the next few years. That claim on the screen, if you're not paying very, very careful attention, it makes it look like this is a consumer protection measure. This is about keeping your rates low. That's really not what this is about, and that's why we call it foul on.
Agreement on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I'm a supporter of clean energy. I like the idea of 25 by 25, but there's no evidence, for example, that that's going to necessarily lower your rates, and in the short term, it might raise them. I would think that's worth it if you get to a cleaner energy point, but I don't think we need to put that in the Constitution.
I was just going to say, I mean, we can talk about legislating something like that, but does this need to be in the Constitution?
And we have legislated renewals, I think, to the detriment of Michigan. But you only have to look to California to see that these claims are just absolutely BS. California has tough renewable standards in law.
You just said BS.
So did the president.
We're just throwing it out there today.
I'm just following my leader. Highest electricity rates in the nation, getting higher, and it hasn't, their mandates, their renewable energy standard has not created any new jobs. In fact, jobs are leaving that state because the cost of doing business there is getting so high, in part because of energy costs.
All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the ad that is against Proposal 3. Go ahead.
Proposal 3 will cost $12 billion, but it claims it'll create jobs. So how are they doing so far? One Michigan renewable energy company got $47.4 million government dollars and produced only 3 new jobs. That's interesting. $15 million a job, and Michigan's families would be forced to pay thousands in higher electric bills? For this, we need to vote no on Proposal 3. Higher bills, no plan.
All right, going back to the money. John, what'd you find?
We checked out the job claims and found those in this ad to be accurate. Again, the problem is on the pocketbook issue. A lot of what we do with the Truth Squad is we go back to the ad writers and say, okay, how are you documenting this? How are you making this claim? In this case, the estimate is $10 to $12 billion for what this will cost over a long period of time. To get to the $2,500 figure, which is the claim that it's going to cost you and me and the guy behind the tree in utility bills, they simply divided the total customer base into that $12 billion figure. That's just not very detailed math. I'm sure Nolan's house is bigger than mine. His electrical bill is surely bigger than mine.
Certain on that.
Surely bigger than mine.
My truck certainly is bigger.
Your truck's definitely bigger than mine.
I wouldn't.
The electricity bill in your truck alone is going to be more expensive than my house. But what we're saying
I
here,
don't use the blow dryer.
you don't need to. But anyway, the idea that it's going to cost every consumer the same amount, and that two retirees in Taylor who are watching this in a two-bedroom brick ranch are suddenly going to see skyrocketing electrical bills that will equal whatever somebody in Commerce Township might be. We just thought that was a little fast and loose.
And, you know, bottom line, you've got to do your homework when you're going to be voting on these proposals. The Truth Squad has been filling in such a valuable role in vetting all of these ads.
Well, thank you. It's a lot of work, but we think it's really important.
All right, John Bebow from the Center for Michigan, thanks so much for joining us on MiWeek. We appreciate it. And, of course, you can find all this information at MichiganTruthSquad.com, and also check out the Center for Michigan's Bridge magazine. You can find a link to it on our site at MiWeek.org. All right, you know, the debates are done and the presidential race is in overdrive. If you're in Ohio, Nevada, Virginia, Florida, and a handful of other states, candidates, well, they're looking for you. Here in Michigan, along with the majority of the country, well, we've got to be content to watch this whole thing play out, which always brings up the inevitable gripe: why is there an electoral college, and why can't we just choose a president by popular vote? So I pulled out my pocket Federalist papers, you know, as I carry them with me everywhere.
I got my pocket Constitution.
Got your pocket Constitution. So people say, always gets back to the inevitable conversation: why don't we just choose the president by popular vote?
And we could. I mean, the founders weren't that particular about how states allocated their electoral votes. They were open to proportional voting, and some states do. Maine and Nebraska award theirs by congressional districts. I think we would have seen a different campaign. I know we would have seen a different campaign this season had all states awarded theirs proportionally. And you can do it by congressional district, or you can do it straight proportionally. You get 60% of the vote, you get 60% of the electoral votes in a state. That would have forced these campaigns to make a nationwide selling of their ideas. They would have had to go to California. They'd have had to go to New York and Texas. Some of the biggest states in this country didn't get any attention from these candidates. Michigan got a little because it's sort of a battleground state, but not really. But most of the time these fellows have spent campaigning it's been in Ohio, Florida, Virginia, Colorado, a couple of other states that are considered up for grabs. It is a disservice to the American people to have it play out like this.
You know, we never seem to have this conversation until we get a close race like this.
People are worried about my guys are going to lose because of the Electoral College.
Right. And is that a case there to then blow up what's been in the Constitution?
Well, I mean, the whole idea of the Electoral College was to give more weight to small states, right? Mm-hmm. Because they weren't going to have populations large enough to compete with the bigger states, and in fact, we've seen that actually play out. I mean, even in the 2000 election, if Al Gore had won New Hampshire, which only has 3 electoral votes, he'd have won the election.
Which small states are getting attention in this election?
Well, I mean, this election is not, it's not happening, although Colorado's not that big of a state, and they're right in the middle of it. I'm not a huge proponent of the Electoral College. I think you could do it by popular vote, but the idea that if you did it by popular vote, I don't think you'd have any possibility of really small states playing any sort of big role in national elections. You would eliminate the possibility of a New Hampshire, for example, being decisive. And so you would really focus, everyone would campaign in California, essentially.
What you saw this time, because Maine is proportionate, awards proportionately, the Romney campaign last week went out and spent $300 grand there on ads. It wouldn't have thought about that if it were an all or nothing state.
Right.
In this age of pork politics, you know that over the next 4 years, whoever wins is going to lard Ohio up with pork, lard Florida up with pork, because they're buying electoral votes. And so you not only have a few states determining the election, you have a few states who sort of rise to the priority list in the policy.
But it's not always
in Washington.
I think the issue is that it's not always the same for states. I mean, Ohio is always
always Ohio. It's always
in the mix, and Florida always in the mix. Virginia was out of contention for Democrats for 2 generations. Colorado is a state that used to be reliably Republican, is now a swing state. I mean, it shifts as the population.
But you're running to be president of the entire United States, and you're campaigning in a narrow band of states, and you're campaigning every day in those states.
But I guess I'm just not sure that eliminating the Electoral College would change that.
You don't have to eliminate the Electoral College.
You're saying do it
proportionally
so
by
that
state.
your vote in Michigan counts the same as it does.
So maybe Maine and Nebraska can teach us a little something. Okay, real quick in the time we have left on this topic, tell me what Mitt Romney's campaign has to do in the next week and a half.
They have to keep selling Mitt Romney. I think that we've reached a point in the campaign where people have already made up their mind about the president. And what they're looking at now is, okay, we know how we feel about Barack Obama. How do we feel about Mitt Romney? And do we feel confident enough in him to cast your vote? You saw the help he got during the debates was all about that. It was all about him building his case that he could be an effective president.
Okay, and what does the Obama campaign have to do?
I think the Obama campaign's got to get into these states that Mitt Romney has to have: Virginia, Ohio, Colorado, Florida. If he can't run the table in those 4 states, he can't win the Electoral College. You've got leads of various sizes in those states. Some of them very, very thin. You got to hold the line in those places.